so bullish for the future. The Discovery Bank CEO Hilton Kellner on their new trading relationship with Luno and their take-a-pause security function. How electric car sales are surging, but not in the US. The mini budget and small business and an investment school tonight. When to invest in insurance companies. All of that to come, but first, the very latest Eyewitness News.
Good evening, I'm Zingisa Chirwa. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the investment in infrastructure is focused on correcting apartheid spatial planning. He says this is why government has committed 1 trillion rand for infrastructure of spending in the midterm budget. He was speaking on day one of the National Construction Summit today in Boksburg, where industry leaders were joined by business and labor officials. Jabuli Limbata has more.
The breakdown of the trillion rand investment has a large portion allocated for roads, second to that is energy and water and sanitation facilities. President Cyril Ramaphosa says this investment addresses past planning failures such as apartheid spatial planning and deficits of roads, rail and ports.
That is why government has committed 1 trillion rand in infrastructure spending over the medium term. This is the very first time our country, since the dawn of democracy, even before democracy, has committed such a large amount of money to infrastructure.
He added,
now, this is money that is out there for you to utilize, for you to use as enablers to turbocharge your industry to grow to higher levels. As the Minister of Finance indicated in the medium-term budget policy statement yesterday, we are shifting the composition of spending from consumption to investment.
He says the capital payments are the fastest growing expenditure item on their national budget. Jabuli Limbata, Eyewitness News.
Police in KwaZulu-Natal say Stuart Sharnik opened a can of worms when he made public claims around his criminal record. Sharnik, who is a close associate of suspended crime detection head Shadrack Sibiya, accused the police of tarnishing his reputation. This came after crime intelligence boss Dumisani Khumalo listed his criminal history in the Madlanga Commission. Today, the KZN police top brass briefed the media, saying in its probe of the claims made by Sharnik, more concerning details emerged. Nhlanhla Mabaso reports.
Police in KwaZulu-Natal say Stuart Sharnik is now the subject of an investigation. They say his claims that crime intelligence head Dumisani Khumalo tarnished his image prompted them to look into his criminal history. This led to findings that his criminal record on the subsystem was tampered with. KZN Deputy Commissioner for Crime Detection, Anthony Gopal.
What alarmed us is that these cases are in KZN. General Khumalo is not here. Lieutenant General Khumalo doesn't work in KZN. He works there, but he knows, and he's talking about our KZN cases. Mr. Sharnik, as if we are a non-existent KZN, he talks about it there. So that's what informs us to go and look for these cases, and we draw these case workers. Gopal
added that their probe has various elements.
As I said to you, in part of the looking into Mr. Sharnik's profile, as I said, we picked up a lot of other things.
Sharnik's criminal history also includes possession of firearms and carjackings. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News, Durban.
Former Ekurhuleni head of employee relations, Xolani Ngciza, has painted the city of Ekurhuleni as a municipality rooted in corruption, irregularities and no regard for the law. Ngciza concluded his 2-day testimony before the Madlanga Commission this afternoon. Ngciza's testimony centered around allegations of political interference and nepotism within the city. RN Singh reports.
Elements of criminality, fraudulent and unlawful agreements and instances of gross misconduct within the city of Ekurhuleni formed the crux of Xolani Ngciza's testimony before the Madlanga Commission. The former Ekurhuleni head of employee relations' testimony centered around the suspended acting EMPD head Julius Mkhonazi and ex-city manager Imogen Mashazi. Ngciza accused Mashazi of shielding Mkhonazi against disciplinary action after he was found to have struck an unlawful deal between EMPD and tender tycoon Vusi Muzikat Matlala.
There is a point where there were such gross allegations that were made about corruption, tender irregularities, and all sorts of things. At no point whatsoever has the municipality ever commissioned a forensic investigation.
Ngciza was dismissed in 2023 after pursuing disciplinary action against Mkhonazi. RN Singh, Eyewitness News.
And Spanish authorities say they've dismantled a human trafficking organization smuggling children from the Canary Islands to France. The 11 arrested suspects face charges including document forgery, child abduction, involvement in a criminal organization, and child pornography. An investigation was launched after 14 minors went missing from youth care centers. The probe then uncovered a well-organized network with logistics in Morocco, Ivory Coast, and facilities in Spain. Police are still searching for the missing minors. And in your financials, gold is trading at $4,239.48 an ounce. The rand is $16.96 to the dollar, $22.32 to the pound, and $19.71 to the euro. Brent crude is $62.71 a barrel.
In your sport, the Springboks ring changes for Italy clash. Nigeria squad call off their boycott over unpaid bonuses, and organizers confirm that the 2028 LA Olympics will kick off with the women's 100-meter final.
A cloudy Friday is in store for Gauteng with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 14 degrees and peak at highs of 25. Pretoria 17 and 27. Vereeniging 14 and 26. Cape Town clear skies with a moderate south-southeasterly breeze at a low of 16 and a high of 26. The top story in EWN this hour. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the investment in infrastructure is focused on correcting apartheid spatial planning.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Well, at this hour in Germiston, heading towards Leondale, Spruitview areas, you can expect about a 30-minute delay. This is on the N3 southbound between Grey Avenue and Heidelberg Road due to an earlier accident. We still have those roadworks in the Sunwood Park area. This is on the N17 eastbound between Rondebolt and Carnival City, still in Boksburg. There's bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is on the N12 eastbound between Atlas Road and Tom Jones. We also have those roadworks causing heavy delays in the Calvin Alex area. This is on the N3 southbound between the Bacloon Interchange and London Road, while in the Mother City expect delays on the elevated freeway heading into the Cape Town CBD. Also bumper-to-bumper traffic on the M5. This is M5 southbound approaching the N2. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards. Good evening, I'm Stephen Grootes, 8 minutes after 6, the time being a week of sort of good news, and that I think being reflected on the market today. The JSE All Share up by over 1%, obviously stronger resource prices having an impact on that too, but if you consider the lower inflation target, the sense that maybe government finances are slowly turning around. Certainly you get a sense that things are turning. Well, it's been a very, very strong time for the gold price. You'll hear from Mike Fraser in a moment. They had a capital markets day yesterday. He's the CEO at Gold Fields. Interesting announcements from Discovery Bank talking about, well, obviously using more AI, but their take a pause feature in particular, which essentially tracks what you buy, keeps an eye on it, and then if you go out of sort of pattern, asks you again, are you sure you really want to do this? Hilton Kellner's the CEO there. We'll speak to him also on their tie-up with Luno, and in fact, Christo de Wit from Luno SA, also on the Money Show this evening. A lot going on at COP, including, for various reasons, the fact that we've been reduced to observer status because Dion George, the minister who was sent there, is no longer the Minister of the Environment. We'll check in with Siphumelele Zondi, and we will also have a look at some of the science of success. A lot to come on the Money Show tonight. Good to hear from you on 011 883 0702 021 446 0567 and voice notes on 072 702 1702.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
Well, a big announcement from Goldfields during their Capital Markets Day yesterday. They're going to return around $500 million to shareholders through special dividends, share buybacks. Goldfields also explaining how it will maintain its gold production at between 2.5 and 3 million ounces a year. And of course, if you've taken a look at the gold price in the last year, you'll know you want to produce as much as you can during this time. Well, Mike Fraser is the CEO at Goldfields. Mike, good evening to you. Obviously, the pressure is on to keep production at this level while gold is so high. How difficult do you think it's going to be to do that?
Hi, Stephen. And look, I think thanks very much for allowing us to talk about our business today. Look, first and foremost, I want to just say that whilst we are in a massively privileged position where the gold price is and we're generating huge amounts of cash, yesterday we forecasted at consensus, which is $1,000 below spot prices today, will generate around $20 billion of cash over the next 5 years. It provides us a really unique opportunity of not just maximizing value for shareholders today, but equally investing for future generations. Goldfields got a proud history of over 138 years of continuous production, and we're very mindful as stewards of this business that we're not just investing for today and taking advantage of the business today, but also creating a long-term sustainable business.
So where would you be looking to invest? And I would imagine that to go and buy gold mines right now might be quite an expensive proposition.
Absolutely. And I think what we are very privileged for is we have a very good platform within our current portfolio to reinvest back into the business. We talk about having 3 levers of growth available to us. The first and the lowest cost opportunities to extend life and to increase production is within our own businesses. And so we did announce yesterday as well $2 billion of discretionary investments back into to extend life and to lift production. That has enabled us to put out a guidance over the next 5 years to really lift production from around 2.4 million ounces, which is our guidance for 2025, to around 3 million ounces by the end of the decade. All of that will come from our current growth options that are available to us, whether it's the development of our Windfall project in Canada, the ramp-up of our project at Salares Norte, but equally incremental ramp-up from assets like South Deep, Tarkwa Mine in Ghana, our Australian assets. So we are really trying to unlock that incremental improvement within our portfolio whilst we're adding other assets. Talking about acquisitions, you're quite right. Under this price environment, it's really expensive to buy producing assets. We've been really fortunate over the last 12 months. We've successfully completed 2 incremental transactions. Firstly, the acquisition of Osisko, which gave us 100% of the Windfall project in Canada. And secondly, the consolidation of our Gruyere position through the acquisition of Gold Road. Both of those deals were done at really attractive valuations. And even since the announcement of the last one in 6 months, you've seen gold prices run quite significantly. So I think we got the timing absolutely spot on those 2 transactions. And you're quite right. Trying to do deals in the current market environment would be really difficult.
When you try and increase the production from your current assets or try and keep them producing for longer, there'll be somewhere maybe there's a bit more sort of area on the site that you could dig. But I presume some of them you're just going to have to go deeper.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think there's two in particular that we're really mindful of. One is Granny Smith in Australia, the second being Agnew, and maybe the third to a lesser extent being St. Ives. These are assets that have continually been able to replace reserves over time. But you're quite right. Often these get structurally deeper, and therefore you've got to think about how you offset that structural cost inflation. Within the discretionary investments that we announced yesterday, we have 2 very key projects in Australia to help us mitigate and offset those costs. And that's the implementation of a significant material handling systems, both at St. Ives and at Granny Smith. One being a twin decline system at St. Ives, and the other one being possibly a railway type system at Granny Smith. That will help us to unlock that resource at depth and to reduce the cost by reducing reliance on haul trucks to bring ore out to surface.
And the gold price itself, I mean, we know the longer term reasons why it's so high, central bank buying, general geopolitical issues, things like that. I imagine there's still quite a lot of room for even more optimism. I mean, the indications are gold will be at these prices or even higher for quite some time, all things being equal.
Absolutely. And I think if you just look at it year to date, I mean, it's a remarkable run that we've had. You know, gold prices up over 60% year to date. And if you look at what's happened with consensus prices, even last week, we're now seeing long-term consensus prices above $3,000 an ounce, which, you know, this is kind of unprecedented time. I think what's also really important, and the point you make about gold prices staying, you know, having more to run, investors continue to remain underinvested in gold. And in particular, as you're seeing this kind of trade away from the US dollar as the functional reserve currency, people are looking for an alternative store and value. And fortunately, you know, people are going back to security, which is what gold provides. And so certainly we believe that gold has got more upside. We don't plan our business for that. So we do plan on a much more conservative basis, and that's how we stayed in business for over 100 years. But we do try and take advantage of this. And I think for people that are investing in gold equities, like we are seeing new money flowing into the sector, there's certainly a lot more opportunity to gain benefit from it. And, you know, our stock is up over 200% year to date. And that's why we've been able to announce superior returns to shareholders. And that's where I think people are flowing into the sector.
Mike Fraser, CEO at Goldfields, thank you for your time on The Money Show.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
A big announcement from Discovery Bank today. They're going to allow their clients to invest in crypto assets to trade in them directly through their banking app. In other words, you would access your crypto account through the banking app. Hilton Kellner is the CEO at Discovery Bank. Hilton, good evening. You're doing this with Luno. How's it going to work?
Good evening, Stephen. So, you know, we've seen the Discovery Bank app as being kind of the central interface for all our clients' Discovery products, and they access the Discovery Bank app virtually every day on average. So highly engaged. And we've seen that it is a natural kind of home for all their financial services. We've also seen at the same time increased investment and activity in crypto assets. That's a global phenomenon, and South Africans are following suit. And in our analysis, Luno is the preferred platform amongst our clients. There are over 6 million South Africans that use it for their crypto asset trading. And what we've done is a direct integration that really allows our clients to link their Luno wallets directly through the Discovery Bank app. So in the familiar secure environment of their Discovery Bank app next to all of their accounts, then to fund their crypto wallets or crypto assets and buy and sell cryptocurrencies in over 50 assets, and then track the balances in the bank app. So their Luno wallet will look and appear as one of their Discovery Bank accounts, and you can transfer seamlessly, frictionlessly between them, and then trade with the liquidity that's available on the Luno platform itself.
And I presume you will have a fair amount of functionality with that then.
Yeah, so I mean the kind of the access is broad. Over 50 crypto assets that our clients can access, with all of the kind of the trading functionality that they need.
You've also announced a new suite of sort of security facilities, and one of them is, I think the phrase was, a key moment of pause when you make a payment. How does that work?
So we're using AI to analyze in real time every single transaction that our clients are making, and we've using that we analyze the nature of the transaction, the risk factors of the payer, of the beneficiary, and then effectively based on an individual client's personal behaviors. So completely individual, recognizing that different clients interact with their finances in very different ways. We effectively establish in real time a threshold of risk or probability of risk associated with that specific transaction. based on all of those factors. And if it is deemed to be what we would think to be of elevated risk, then we immediately change the color of the screen. The payment and the client gets what we call a trust alert. Trust is an acronym for transaction risk understanding and security threat, but effectively it's kind of a reflection of the individual's risk associated with that transaction, and it gives them as you say, a moment for pause to check, confirm the beneficiary details, the merchant that they're effectively paying money to or transacting with, and gives them an opportunity to confirm if they do want to move forward with the transaction or not.
And if you're in a rush, it's not going to delay you while you do that?
No, it's kind of built into the journey, so it is very, very seamless and frictionless for the client, and it's just part of the normal payment process.
You're also offering sort of rewards with multi-choice, and DSTV's changing quite quickly at the moment. Canal Plus is the new owner. They've offered all sorts of rewards, and they've had free weekends and things like that. My question for you on this is, Hilton, did you approach them or did they approach you?
We've been in discussions for a long time. I think once again, a large number of our clients and South Africans in general, have DSTV as their kind of premium entertainment choice, and what we've done, I think, and we'll roll out over the next few months, is effectively use our behavioural models within Discovery Bank to reward our clients in unique ways, and in this case, it's effectively through the payment system to DSTV. So really kind of making access to what we think is best-in-class, world-class entertainment, but at a significantly reduced effective price.
We've spoken before, you and I, about the competition in this space. Do you think things like that move the dial? I mean, obviously you do, or you wouldn't be doing it. But, would that be nearly as big a factor as, for example, the functionality on an app? I'd imagine for a lot of people that would be a big thing.
I think for a lot of people, the kind of the value that they can derive from their bank is incredibly important. And in our case, our entire model is built on kind of aligning the rewards and value that we deliver to our clients with their behaviors. So the better they manage their money, the better the rewards that they receive from the bank. And so whether it's in healthy food and discounts at Woolworths and Checkers on the healthy foods that you buy, or when you spend responsibly to earn miles, which you can then monetize, or in entertainment space, that's where a huge amount of value is being derived. So our clients generate over 1 billion miles a month today. That's worth over 100 million rand, and they're spending them at an equal rate. So the value is really tangible.
Hilton Kellner, CEO of Discovery Bank there. Well, the other side of this transaction, of course, is Luno. The head of Luno SA is Christo de Wit. Christo, good evening. Discovery Bank, yes, a sort of relatively new bank, but certainly more evidence that crypto is going mainstream.
Evening, Stephen. Yeah, absolutely. I think such a significant milestone for the crypto industry in South Africa, but not only in South Africa and the continent as a whole. And I think with this integration with Discovery Bank, it really signals that move from niche to mainstream, where institutions such as Discovery Bank are now accepting and integrating with this asset class.
Will there be any difference in fees for people who trade directly on your platform or people who trade on your platform through Discovery Bank?
No, the fees would be the same.
Okay, so there's no friction there in any way.
No, I think the important thing about the integration was we wanted to make it as seamless as possible, and just to resonate that people would be easily able to adopt this through the Discovery Bank app, which obviously then opens up a whole new audience to crypto investment.
So I get the rationale. As you say, it's an important moment. I agree with you there. You're not worried that at some point too many agreements like this, and actually people don't need you as much as maybe they did? I mean, a bank like Discovery, this might be step one. Step two might well be, we'll just do crypto directly.
I mean, that is definitely a consideration. But what we see this opportunity as is, how do we bring this asset class to a much broader audience? I think Hilton also mentioned, there's a significant portion of the population, I think around 1 in 10 South Africans, have held crypto or touched crypto or invested in it in the past. And I think what this then enables is it brings the asset class to a much broader audience. It makes it more mainstream. It makes it more accessible. And the growth of that asset class is super important to us. I think in terms of a crypto exchange and the role that we play in the ecosystem, we come with, all the expertise. We have the liquidity and the custodial setup. We bring the security measurements in place. So I think there's always a place for a crypto exchange. And I don't think that would impact the role that the crypto exchange plays in the future.
It would seem to me Discovery is a sort of established brand in South Africa. It's still actually relatively new. But do you think this is going to put more pressure on the, I would say more established, but maybe older is more accurate, Christo, brands? I'm thinking, your standard banks, your FNBs, banks that have been around for a very long time. I think Standard Bank's over 100 years old. Do you think it's going to put more pressure on them to do the same thing, and this accelerates the process of mainstreaming crypto?
Yeah, I think what is interesting is we've seen, since crypto assets have been regulated in South Africa, that kind of ignited the winds of change to start blowing. And, we've seen interest from the more established, financial institutions across the board that have expressed interest in this. I think this is an asset class that you can no longer ignore. And definitely, I think as time goes on, we will definitely see more of these more traditional institutions come to the table as well. But I think as a first in the country and on the continent, it's such a good fit for Luno and Discovery Bank because there's a lot of synergy between the two brands. And I think that's definitely going to set the pace for how this industry moves to the next phase.
Christo de Wit, thanks very much indeed. Head of Luno SA. Very interesting deal.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Viv Govender is portfolio manager at Rand Swiss. Viv, good evening. Good to talk again. Nice strong day for the Rand after, I suppose, a week of pretty good news for South Africa.
Oh, yeah, excellent news. I mean, we've had a nice run over the last few days. Obviously, we had, grey listing, getting off that list. You saw our unemployment figures drop, so more people are employed than in the past. We had a reasonably good budget, as well as the move of the, inflation target down to 3%, which is, I think, a long-term the correct move for South Africa.
I mean, the Rand is not where people would have predicted. I mean, yes, some people have been predicting a bit more Rand strength, but certainly if this momentum continues, I mean, we could start to see the Rand hopefully getting a bit stronger. Helps, of course, that the dollar is getting weaker, generally speaking.
Oh, yes. I mean, the dollar is getting weaker. That might not be entirely accidental. I think there is a move from the U.S. to try and devalue the currency. It helps a number of ways. Basically, it allows them to export more. Also, I think a weak country for them does mean that effectively they owe less money because they do borrow in their own local currency. But I do think that, if we get the inflation rate in South Africa down to 3% and maintain that for a little while, a lot of the depreciation we've seen as a consistent basis against the dollar, we've seen it basically for the last, the last 30 years that the rand has been depreciating around about 6% per year against the dollar because of our differential inflation rate. That would certainly be reduced significantly to almost non-existent levels.
Nice results, I thought, from Sanlam, a bit of an update from them today. And it would seem that insurance premiums are still good revenue.
Yeah, look, I mean, the share price today was up slightly, about 0.2%. Year to date, the stock has been up about, 10% or so. It has really, done okay-ish over the last few years. I do think that, however, we need to start seeing a bit more growth in the country. Obviously, the stronger stock market over the last couple of months has helped the company a little bit. But, considering that, even though unemployment rate has come down a bit, we're still by far, not even close, the highest unemployment rate in the world. Those kind of things, I think, still have a negative effect on companies like Sanlam because of the fact that obviously they depend on healthy, well-financed consumer.
Brait had an update as well. Obviously, their biggest asset is their chunk of Virgin Active, and that did quite well. And yet, their net asset value was up by 5%. Their share price declined, and then we back to the sort of question of the discount between the share value and the net asset value.
Of course, look, when it comes to these kind of things, there's always that the question as to whether or not holding via something else is really justifiable or not. And often we do find that management does take a bit of a cut out. The famous example was Naspers with Tencent. Even though that share went up quite a lot, there was still questions about just how well management was taking and kind of paying themselves, etc. So that is one thing to be concerned about when you look at these kind of those structures.
And then US markets opening down. Obviously, the US federal government is open again, but there's a lot of data people are waiting for.
Which apparently, according to the US press secretary, we may never see. The thing with Trump is he does things that are just, unprecedented. Quite frankly, this is just one of those kind of like moves we have seen. That being said, I do think that some of the other indicators we've seen out there, like ADP jobs numbers and so on, does indicate that we are probably seeing a bit of weakness in the U.S. job market, which is, I think, also being reflected in some of the surveys we're seeing about people's satisfaction with the economy.
Verve Governor, good to talk. Thanks very much indeed. Portfolio Manager at Rand Swiss, bringing the time to 6:30. Time for the latest Eyewitness News. And Giswa Chua, good evening. What's the latest at Fly Safair?
Well, Stephen, it seems Fly Safair says its employer-initiated work stoppage is due to continue for at least another week. Spokesperson Kirby Gordon says employees who choose to participate in the industrial action will remain locked out. The wage talks began on the 4th of November when the union rejected the company's request for a 5.7% increase and a 7.5% annual bonus. He adds that non-unionized members have kept operations going.
On an individual basis, people can accept the company's offer and they sign a contract to that effect, and that basically withdraws their participation from the industrial action and they come back to work.
Western Cape Premier Alan Winde has released the long-awaited police ombudsman report into alleged gang infiltration within the province's police management. The report was commissioned in 2022 by Western Cape Police Ombudsman Oswald Reddy. It followed a High Court ruling by High Court Judge Daniel Tulare suggesting that members of the 28th gang may have influenced senior South African police service officials. Ntutuzelo Nene reports.
Premier Alan Winde has faced criticism from a number of civil groups for sitting on the findings of the report amid ongoing gun and gang violence in Cape Town. Winde says over the past 3 years, his government has fought to have this matter properly investigated, with those found guilty to be prosecuted and locked away. However, the Premier says their efforts have been obstructed by the slow progress of the SAPS and police watchdog IPID's investigations into Judge Tulare's comments. Winde adds that he has been reluctant to release the report to demonstrate good faith with the SAPS and IPID and to protect those involved in the investigation.
The necessity of the latter consideration can be in no doubt, as the original matter heard by Judge Tulare, no fewer than 3 witnesses had already been murdered.
He adds that it's for this reason that the relevant identities have been redacted in the report. Ntutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News.
The family of 15-year-old who died after a car ran over during a coming-of-age ceremony in Germiston says they are relieved that the accused now faces additional charges. Priti Mahlangu died on the way to hospital after a car plowed into the group of girls at a traditional Zulu ceremony. The accused, Martha van der Walt, appeared at the Germiston Magistrate Court today on charges of murder, attempted murder, in addition to the initial culpable homicide charge. The deceased teen's family says they had lost hope in seeing any progress with the case following multiple postponements. Family spokesperson Mzwandile Soyaya.
I believe that steady but sure we are heading in getting the justice for Priti. Why am I saying so? Remember, we were busy crying that we want the charge to be changed from culpable homicide to murder.
He says after today's proceedings, their hope has been renewed.
The family and the community members, we have accepted the fact that we will live with the culpable homicide charge. But to our amusement today, when we enter the courtroom, we are hearing that further 3 charges are being added now.
And Stellenbosch University has confirmed an incident of gender-based violence on campus. The alleged assault took place at Russell Boardman House on Tuesday evening. The same night, students held peaceful protests on campus. Morgan van der Rede has more.
Stellenbosch University says the reported gender-based violence assault has been reported to police, but details of the incident have not been revealed. It has, however, evoked strong reaction from some students, with a protest just days after similar action at Wits University in Johannesburg. There, students protested following reports of a rape. The incidents have come a week before a planned nationwide shutdown, a day before the start of the G20 Leaders Summit, that aims to highlight the ongoing crisis of gender-based violence. The shutdown was initiated by the organization Women for Change, which has called on women to stop working and withdraw from the economy for 15 minutes at noon on Friday, the 21st of November. The movement also calls on government to declare femicide a national disaster. Morgan van der Rede, Eyewitness News.
And a cloudy Friday is in store for Gauteng with isolated afternoon showers and thundershowers expected. Lows of between 14 and 17 degrees and highs of between 25 and 27. Cape Town can expect clear skies at a low of 16 and a high of 26. The top story on EWN. FlySFair says its employer-initiated work stoppage is due to continue for at least another week.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in Germiston, if you're heading towards Leondale, Spruitview, there's an accident scene on the N3 southbound near Heidelberg Road, now causing more than an hour delay, so avoid that route at all costs. Rather get off at Grey Avenue and use Black Reef Road and make your way around Dinwiddie. There's also bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is in the Calvin Alex area. This is due to roadworks on the N3 southbound between Marlborough Drive and London Road. We still have those roadworks slowing down traffic. This is in the Boksburg area. On the N12 eastbound, this is causing delays between Atlas Road and Tom Jones, while in the Mother City, slow-moving traffic on the elevated freeway heading into the Cape Town CBD. Also, slow-moving traffic. This is on the N1 outbound between Foreshore and Belleville. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us. Because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
As the world's leaders meet for the G20 summit in Johannesburg, the eyes of the world will be upon us. Not just to South Africa, but Africa. It's the very first time that this summit has been held on our continent. What the world will see is a country building infrastructure that improves the lives of its people and lives up to the summit's themes of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. SANRAL's investment and projects ensure that we undertake this journey together with our neighbors. The N4 Maputo Corridor project stimulates trade to Maputo in Mozambique. The upgrade extends along the N4 to the Trans-Kalahari Corridor, growing trade for Botswana. The N7 from the Cape to Namibia is growing cross-border commerce, and the N1 project facilitates trade with Zimbabwe. The world will see an Africa that's building a better continent through roads. SANRAL, an agency of the Department of Transport.
We get told to wait for things. Wait for the right moment. Wait for a rainy day. Wait till the cows come home. Cows? Really? Well, the waiting is over because the Decofurn Furniture Black Friday Super Sale is now on, and with 15 to 40% and more off everything for the whole of November. What are you waiting for? The Decofurn Black Friday Super Sale, now on, in-store or at decofurnsa.co.za.
You know what success looks like. Now discover why focus is the driving force behind every success story. Catch 702 in conversation with Momentum on The Money Show with Stephen Grootes every Wednesday, discussing the science of success. Step into the mindset of top financial achievers and discover how your thinking, behavior, and focus can shape lasting financial success. Don't miss Momentum's Science of Success Festival 2025, streaming live on 14 November. Register now on momentum.co.za. Momentum, your journey to success on 702. Momentum is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
EWN Sport.
Solakele, good evening. What's the latest?
Thanks so much, Stephen. Well, the Proteas will return to test action tomorrow as they take on India in the first of two clashes. Captain Themba Bavuma says the world champions are battle ready to achieve their ambition of winning a test series on the subcontinent.
I think whenever we go into series, there's a lot more of an expectation for us as a team to, uphold the whole champion status. Doesn't really change anything from our point of view, but I think from a confidence point of view, it's just a case of us kind of walking proudly with that badge, being known as the champions, the current champions at this point. We have a lovely opportunity now coming up against India in their own conditions. There's not many bigger challenges than that.
For Rassie Erasmus, he says no replacement will be called up to take the space of Loet Diaga during the outgoing tour. The Springboks return to action on Saturday against Italy, and Erasmus has made 11 changes to the starting 15, including calling up Zachary Porthen and Jean Klein. Erasmus has also shared his thoughts on their opponents, who are on a high, having beaten Australia last time out.
They are really good at the breakdown. We did not just get frustrated, but we got outplayed at the breakdown with their ability. In one game they had 66 bites at the breakdown, just in one game. It just shows they've got a hell of a focus and they technically and know when to do it really well. So that is something that we will try and sort out, which is a tough thing to do.
Kosinati CBC says everyone is desperate to impress as Bafana gear up for their friendly clash against Zambia on Saturday. The two nations meet at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in what is South Africa's final preparation game ahead of the AFCON 2025 squad announcement.
No, for us it's just taking one game at a time. We have a mammoth task, against Zambia at home. But we're playing at home and we have to make it count. And I think the performances have been showing, throughout the period of the 2 years or 3 years we've been with the coach. So on the weekend it won't be any different. We can't look ahead of ourselves and think of AFCON. We have to think about the game on Saturday.
And Minister in the Presidency, Nkumbuzo Ntshavheni, has confirmed that South Africa plans to bid for the 2036 or 2040 Olympic and Paralympic Games. If successful, it'll be the first time the world's biggest sporting event is staged in Africa, and follows on from the country being the first on the continent to host the FIFA World Cup back in 2010. South Africa in continuous dialogue with the IOC, and she's added that significant investment wouldn't be required to improve the country's already available infrastructure. Tholakele Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
At Auto & General, we understand your business is built on more than just vehicles. It's your stock, tools and equipment, and the premises where you work. Auto & General Business Insurance is designed for businesses like yours, protecting your assets against fire, theft, storms, and other unexpected events. To protect your livelihood, visit autogen.co.za and get an obligation-free business insurance quote. Auto & General, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
What do partners of the Gates Foundation do when facing the world's toughest challenges? They keep going. From discovering a plastic drape that helps detect excessive postpartum bleeding faster, to developing better bed nets to kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes, to researching an RSV vaccine that could save hundreds of thousands of children. For every problem, there are people who prove that progress is possible. The Gates Foundation, partners of human potential. Learn more at gatesfoundation.org/keep going.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes.
17 minutes to 7 the time. Well, news today, our status at the COP conference underway in Belém in Brazil actually reduced to observer status. The Environmental Affairs Minister, Deon George, was fired, replaced by Willie Okamp. On the face of it, it looks like it's about internal DA politics. Well, it did. There's also a suggestion George might have said something that does not align with government policy. Meanwhile, the discussions at COP continue, how complicated, difficult and important these climate change conversations are. Tsepo Nsane is a finance and ESG transactor at RMB. Tsepo, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in. We've seen so many commitments to dealing with climate change over the years. Last year was, wait for it, the hottest year on record, as was the year before and the year before that. It looks like we're failing.
Evening, Stephen, and to your listeners as well. I think on paper it does look like that, because particularly when you see it year on year, you are right. 2024 was the hottest year on record. However, though, if you look at it in the long term, right, pre-Paris Agreement, that was COP21, we were expecting temperature projections, average temperature increases, anything between 3 to 4 degrees before those commitments. right now, with the commitments that we have, and we're seeing a lot of countries are decarbonizing, putting a lot of renewable energy, we're now expecting anything between 2 to 2.5 degrees. So yes, in the short term, it looks like things are not working. But when you look at the forecast, you do see improvements.
Are countries doing what they said they would do? I mean, that's always one of the fundamental questions. The US is doing what it said it would do. But are the others, the ones who promised to actually change things?
So I think when you look at it, the president of Brazil actually said it quite nicely. We are going in the right direction, but at the wrong speed. So you do see a lot of renewable energy coming through. Last year, for example, there's about 500 gigawatts of renewable energy, that 10 times ESCOM capacity. And we saw all of that as renewable, and that was 90% of the new capacity that gone into the market. So you do see a lot of renewable energy. We know in South Africa, the renewable energy program. We've seen other countries, we've seen China, what it's doing into the renewable energy space. So you are seeing a lot of things going in the right direction. You remember at COP28, there was that commitment to triple renewable energy to about 11.2 terawatts by 2030. Actually, we are going quite well in that trajectory. The rate that we were supposed to be, it's 16% per annum. We are sitting right now at 15% per annum. So as you can see, things are moving. It's just that the speed now, I think what we're trying to tackle now is the speed of action.
And China's breaking its own targets in many ways. One of the issues is who pays for climate mitigation. I'm going to completely oversimplify this argument. It goes like this. The rich world got rich because they polluted the world. Now the rest of the world wants to catch up, but we don't want them to pollute the world. Therefore, the rich must pay them not to pollute. Are we seeing any money actually flowing as a result of that?
So if you remember this, I think it was COP15 when there's 100 billion per annum. Was committed, whereby developed countries will help developing countries to mobilize that amount of money. And then at COP28, it was tripled to $300 billion per annum dollars. And now there's a commitment to do 1.3 trillion. Right, that's just commitment. Now, is there money flowing? What you do is see that money is flowing. It's just that the composition is not what most African countries or developed markets are looking for. A lot of it is still debt. So it would be nice to see a lot of grant funding coming in, a lot of equity coming into the space so that you don't indebt African countries even more. Even technical support where you come and bring capacity into the market, that would be ideal. However, though, to your comment around developed countries use fossil fuel to get to where they are, what was given to developing economies to say, in the short term, you are allowed to peak your emissions. So that's why it's a principle of peak, plateau, and decline. So developing countries are allowed to peak, but decline accordingly, whereas developed countries are not allowed to do so. So there also is that element of fair share type arrangement that was put in place.
When we first heard the phrase carbon markets, the world was actually a bit cooler than it is now. Is there any movement into sort of a centralized market for carbon credits?
Yes, that is actually going quite well. There's a Paris Agreement carbon mechanism that has come into play, and it's slowly it's coming through. We're seeing a lot of principles now coming through to define which projects are eligible, which countries can trade with each other, and what sort of mechanism. Because in that space, what you don't want is double counting, whereby you thinking you saw your credits, but you're still claiming them locally. You didn't account for them appropriately. So I think the infrastructure is what is being built, but the carbon markets, global carbon markets are coming through.
Tsepo, thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. Tsepo Nsane is Finance and ESG Transactor at RMB.
As leaders in renewable energy finance, Nedbank has a track record spanning over 100 years. From pioneering large-scale solar and wind farms to financing complex energy infrastructure in emerging markets, Nedbank offers clients deep sector expertise, combined with the ability to navigate the unique challenges of Africa's just energy transition. See money differently. Nedbank. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
I'm Samela Kilboy, an actress and mom to 3 lovely kids. I worry about how sugar can make them sick. Drinking sugary drinks could lead to diabetes, heart disease, and obesity as they get older. Diabetes is one of the top causes of death in South Africa. I'm joining the fight to demand government puts our health ahead of greedy industry profits. Government must act now. Increase the health promotion levy on sugary drinks. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
Step into a world of unforgettable experiences in Dubai. From luxury beaches to underwater adventures. From authentic traditions to futuristic museums. Make it a Dubai adventure to remember with Emirates. Fly to Dubai from one of 3 gateways in South Africa. Start your holiday the moment you board with delicious regional meals, complimentary drinks, and up to 6,500 channels of entertainment. Fly Emirates. Fly better.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards.
The Money Show, Tech Thursday.
Siphumelele Zondi is our tech expert. Siphumelele, good evening. You've been looking at the electric vehicle market. It surged 23% in October, but a massive drop in North America. Where in the world are we seeing this huge growth?
Hello, Stephen. And yes, there is a massive growth and a huge chunk of it. So over half of those sales are happening over in China. There's a big uptake over there. And I suppose it's also spearheaded by the variety that the Chinese car manufacturers have in their domestic markets. But also the fact that they're quite strict on launching these vehicles and having them sold at cheaper prices. It's in North America, it's quite bad. In Germany, it's still doing well. Germany is pushing it, and the UK as well. But North America, because of a variety of problems that have happened in North America. So there's been a slowdown over there.
I mean, is it just nobody wants to buy a Tesla for whatever reason, Siphumelele?
But it's also a case of those tariffs that they have on imports of vehicles, imports of some technology parts that are needed for these electric vehicles as well. So even if you want to make it in America, because there are those tariffs that you have to pay for some of those tech parts, it becomes expensive to make it over there. And also importing a car itself, an entire vehicle itself from, let's say, another region that could make it to manufacturers might be expensive as well in the United States.
We all know that to make it work here, we need a lot more charging stations and in a lot more places.
Well, that's been the problem in South Africa. So it's where can you charge the car? That's one. We've had electricity problems, and yes, we do hear that load shedding is a thing of the past. But there are various electricity cuts that happen in various municipalities to different degrees. But also in South Africa, there's been a price factor as well, especially when it comes to European EVs. They've been quite expensive. A lot of them at over R1 million in the South African market. There are some, especially from China, that cost in the region of between 500 and 600,000 rand. But it does seem like there will be more that will be launching in the year 2026. But it's a variety of issues in South Africa, electricity being one of the big issues, but also the cost factor in South Africa. And the cost factor is impacting on the entire car industry.
Siphumelele Zondi, our tech expert. Thank you.
702. Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
The Money Show is in conversation with Momentum, discussing the importance of focus in the science of success. We're joined by Paul Nixon, the head of behavioral finance at Momentum, and Dr. Musa Mtumbeni is a diagnostic radiologist and media personality. Gentlemen, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in tonight. Paul, let me just start with you. So your whole campaign is that financial success is a science. It's not just about how much you get in. It's more about behavior. Why is behavior so important?
It's a good question. Thanks very much, Stephen. Thanks for having us. So behavior is important simply because, especially in the investing world, your decisions that you make can have a big impact on the outcomes that you get. We are obviously, money is a very emotional topic, and when things go up, when things go down, it causes certain emotions within us, and we all have different lives, different goals. And sometimes that pressure sort of, we act and we tend to move money around. Earlier this year, we saw a bit of a spike in volatility. A lot of people de-risk and then they get stuck in the sidelines watching the markets break records. So, behavior can have an impact on your outcomes, yeah.
You've developed a thing called a money fingerprint. I mean, what is that? How does that sort of drive our financial decisions?
So basically, we're giving the ability to financial advisors to have discussions with clients or investors about their kind of factory settings, right? So we all have this kind of these attitudes, experiences that we collect throughout our lives. We have personality traits. That's our set of characteristics that make us who we are. And this sort of interacts with markets, it interacts with various sort of things that happen in the world, and it influences our behavior. So basically what we're doing is we're giving financial advisors the ability to look at this scientifically through a psychometric assessment to try and bring out what these likely behaviors might be, and then try and help people get better outcomes.
So it might be a good idea, for example, to never make a big financial decision before breakfast.
Totally. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So I mean, we know, right? If you need to, if you don't eat, the brain needs energy. So if you don't have a good meal, you've seen that case with the judges who were way more likely to get parole. I think after the judge had come back from having a snack or some such. So yes, absolutely. These are kind of the life hacks that we know about from all these books that are coming out. Yeah.
Dr. Muslim Tumbeni, you actually took the money fingerprint test.
Listen. What a stressful exercise.
I was going to say, what was that like?
It's quite an experience, right? Because when someone says test, all of us start to panic a bit because, I
Yeah.
mean, where's this going? What is
Yeah.
it for? And can I fail this test or not, right? But more than anything else, I think it is exactly what Paul has said. It's a personality test, but not just about who you are, what you like, and that sort of thing, but rather the DNA of how you look at financial decisions and how you can, sort of plan your life around that sort of thing. And I think taking the test for me was quite an interesting one. I think, I've always thought I'm one person, but when you take the test, I think it's quite a broad way in which they look at things. I mean, your risk, how you analyze that, how you are with respect to, whether you do research or not when you think about potentially investing in something. Are you a miser or not? Those sort of things. And I'm using very colloquial terms here, but I think that test and its breakdown and it's an assessment of you sort of highlights the kind of person that you've been, whether you note it subconsciously or not. And I think for me, I find myself in that position, right, where I look at this and I'm like, look, I can see some threads that make sense about who I am. Maybe I don't like spending money in this way. Maybe, I love risk, but, I also am quite conscientious about, how I want to go about risk and things like that. But also some surprise elements were things that could potentially bring up why you make the decisions that you make, right? Is the stuff based rather potentially on your childhood, how your parents
I was going to say,
money.
your upbringing, yeah.
Absolutely. So how your parents handle money, for instance, what they did with cash, and whether or not you kind of are in the same page or on the same page with them about that. So, I mean, for me, growing up, my parents weren't like super rich or anything, very middle class, grew up in the township, and their behavior to money was quite different to how I thought I'd handle money. I was like, oh man, when I get out this house, I'm going to spend, I'm going to live. But it's not necessarily that, because the reality is the money becomes your money. Anyone else's money is easy to spend. When it's yours, it becomes a different issue.
Paul, one of the big themes this year is success favors the focused. It does roll off the tongue. Why is focus such a powerful predictor of financial success? And I say that when my phone just sings and dances all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, focus is really all about, I think, focusing on what matters, which is your personality, right? So I think that, if we look at sort of investments, for example, and we look at the world in terms of risk and return, a lot of people don't look at the world like that. I mean, people look at the world in respect of dreams and nightmares, So for example, I mean, if I just look at an example that I have, I mean, my sort of dad had to move in with us because he ran out of retirement money. If someone had come to him like 30 years ago and said, listen, if you don't save more, you're going to have to ask your son for money. If that would have changed his behavior, right? So focusing on the right stuff, I think, is, or connecting it to emotions behind the money, you have a much better chance of getting the correct behaviors or better behaviors or more saving, for example.
And I presume a financial advisor would help you apply whatever you learned from the money fingerprint, and that would help you.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, it doesn't matter, this has been shown as well, right? It doesn't matter how much you know. I mean, I've studied this stuff, I'm doing a PhD, I've read, but I still make stupid decisions because when you become emotional, it's very, very difficult to control yourself, right? Because it's an emotional decision. So having sort of someone who is your kind of accountability partner or someone who's not emotionally invested in that decision can be extremely important.
Musa, if you went back, you're sitting in your parents' house and you had to say, listen, dude, if you're going to do it again, this is what you would change. What would that be?
With the knowledge I have now?
For having taken this test,
Listen, NVIDIA, I mean, I'm going in. I'm joking. With the knowledge I have now, I think I wouldn't necessarily do anything about my childhood per se, but I think how it would have changed my perspective around money would have probably changed, right? So you grow up poor or middle class and you come from a place of lack a lot of the time. So when you get older and you get money, you want to plug all the holes and all the things that you didn't have when you were younger. So that's sort of the idea. So I think
explains cars, eh?
You know, exactly. So you're like, oh man, we didn't have that Mercedes Benz. So guess what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go buy it now. That sort of thing. So it's, for me, one of those things where it would allow me to focus down a lot better. I know money conversations are very difficult, and a lot of people feel like if they don't understand something, they won't touch it. And I think making ourselves uncomfortable and trying to focus down on potentially getting an understanding of the small, simple little things. And once you get into understanding those small little things, it potentially grows in you getting a better understanding of money and savings and investments and things like that to make potentially better decisions about your future. And of course, don't deprive yourself of things, but think about your future and what that looks like. Because it always feels like this faraway dream, but it's actually knocking closer and closer. We get older each year, so it's problematic.
Well, thanks for that. And Paul, if you want to discover your own money fingerprint or join the Science of Success Festival, where do you go?
I think there's a website which is She Owns Her Success, and the hashtag, follow the hashtag She Owns Her Success. Join the festivities. There'll be a sort of booth. There'll be a QR code that you can scan and do your own money fingerprint. And obviously the financial advisors are there to help you interpret what that stuff means and how you can make better decisions.
Paul Nixon, thank you. Head of Behavioral Finance at Momentum. Dr. Musa Ntembeni, thanks for coming in. The diagnostic radiologist and media personality. Life has a funny way of testing your focus. Those moments when big decisions demand your full attention. That's when having a Momentum accredited financial advisor makes all the difference, helping you cut through the noise with advice that fits your life. Don't miss Season 7 of the Momentum Science of Success Festival featuring best-selling author Dr. Price Pritchard. Register now at momentum.co.za for tools to accelerate your journey, because success favors the focused. You with the Money Show just after 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Zingisa Chirwa. The country's construction industry is being hailed for driving economic recovery after the latest unemployment stats showed it created more than 130,000 jobs in the third quarter of this year. Public Works Minister Dean McPherson says this is due to recent reforms in the department. He was speaking today at the Construction Summit, which is underway in Boksburg. President Cyril Ramaphosa, government officials, labour and business partners were also in attendance. Public Works Minister Dean McPherson.
More than 50% of all jobs created in Q3 came from one sector, our sector, the construction sector. This is no coincidence. It's the direct result of reforms, partnerships, and determination that government is bringing to this industry. This is the beginning of what we have long said was possible, that if we fix what is broken, remove impediments to growth, and build a pipeline of real projects, construction can drive this economy forward.
Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the investment in infrastructure is focused on correcting apartheid spatial planning. He says this is why government has committed 1 trillion rand for infrastructure spending in the medium-term budget. He was also speaking on day one of the National Construction Summit in Boksburg. Jabulin Mbata has more.
The breakdown of the trillion rand investment has a large portion allocated for roads. Second to that is energy and water and sanitation facilities. President Cyril Ramaphosa says this investment addresses past planning failures such as apartheid spatial planning and deficits of roads, rail and ports.
That is why government has committed 1 trillion rand in infrastructure spending over the medium term. This is the very first time our country, since the dawn of democracy, even before democracy, has committed such a large amount of money to infrastructure.
He added,
now, this is money that is out there for you to utilize, for you to use as enablers to turbocharge your industry to grow to higher levels. As the Minister of Finance indicated in the medium-term budget policy statement yesterday, we are shifting the composition of spending from consumption to investment.
He says the capital payments are the fastest growing expenditure item on their national budget. Jabulile Mbata, Eyewitness News.
Zimbabwean opposition leader Job Sikhala claims there is evidence showing that the explosives discovered in his car were planted. Sikhala was arrested in Pretoria last week after police found 26 blasting cartridges and 15 capped fuse connectors in his vehicle. The prominent politician made his second appearance at the Pretoria Magistrate Court today and was released on 10,000 rand bail. Shortly after his release, Sikhala briefly spoke to journalists. Alpha Ramushwana reports.
Prominent Zimbabwean politician Job Sikhala was surrounded by dozens of supporters whom he warmly embraced after being freed from custody. However, he was quick to mention that he does not believe South Africa's judiciary can be used to settle political scores. Sikhala has told reporters that he can prove that the explosives found in his car do not belong to him.
Here there is no feja things. Yes. There is no feja judiciary. There are no feja investigations. They have found out that these things have been planted in our car.
Sikhala's matter has been postponed to February next year for further investigations. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News, Pretoria.
And the family of a 15-year-old who died after a car ran her over during a coming-of-age ceremony in Germiston says they are relieved that the accused now faces additional charges. Priti Mahlangu died on the way to hospital after a car ploughed into a group of girls at the traditional Zulu ceremony. The accused, Martha van der Walt, appeared at the Germiston Magistrate Court today on charges of murder, attempted murder, in addition to the initial culpable homicide charge. The deceased teen's family says they had lost hope in seeing any progress with the case following multiple postponements. Family spokesperson Mzwandile Soyaya.
I believe that steady but sure we are heading in getting the justice for Upriti. Why am I saying so? Remember, we were busy crying that we want the charge to be changed from culpable homicide to murder.
He says after today's proceedings, their hope has been renewed.
The family and the community members, we have accepted the fact that we will live with the culpable homicide charge. But to our amusement today, when we enter the courtroom, we are hearing that further 3 charges are being added now.
And in your financials, gold is trading at $4,236.32 an ounce. The rand is 16.96 to the dollar, 22.32 to the pound, and 19.70 to the euro. Brent crude is $62.54 a barrel.
Well, if you're heading towards Leondale and the Spruitview area, we have an accident scene. Unfortunately, this is in the Germiston area, N3 southbound near Heidelberg Road, causing more than an hour delay all the way from the Grey Avenue off-ramp. So to avoid that, rather get off the Grey Avenue off-ramp and then use Black Reef Road and work your way around Dinwiddie, Albemarle, and then make your way to Katlehong. At this stage, hopefully that will save you some time. In the mother city, there's slow-moving traffic on the elevated freeway. This is heading into the Cape Town CBD. Also slow-moving traffic. This is on the N1 inbound up between Foreshore and Belleville.
A cloudy Friday is in store for Gauteng with isolated afternoon showers and thundershowers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 14 degrees and peak at highs of 25. Pretoria 17 and 27. Vereeniging 14 and 26. Cape Town can expect clear skies with a moderate south-southeasterly breeze at a low of 16 and a high of 26. The top story in EWN this hour: the country's construction industry is being hailed for driving economic recovery after the latest unemployment stats showed it created more than 130,000 jobs in the third quarter of this year.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards. Good evening. Lots to come in the next little while. We'll focus on, it's a fascinating business model, actually. It's called Luxity. It's luxury fashion. But it's also about pre-owned, so it's the resale market, and that I find fascinating. You look at some of the goods, the value that they have there, and they're pre-loved. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. Bulalani Balabala will be in looking at small business focus. He's going to be looking at some of the big awards that we've had quite recently. So looking forward to that conversation. He's been looking at the global entrepreneurship and how that relates to our smaller businesses. And then don't forget Investment School this evening. Whether or not you should actually look at investing in an insurer. Should you look at investing in South Africa's insurance companies? I find that really a very interesting market. So that to look forward to.
The Money Show. The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
And while Mdu and I look at each other. News today that the Chinese leader Xi Jinping won't be coming to the G20 next weekend. And so if you look at him, if you look at the US President Donald Trump, who says he's not coming, the Argentinian leader Javier Milei also not coming, three people who are not coming. And there'll obviously be questions, should we go ahead? Well, obviously the answer is yes. The president has said that we will go ahead. And the president President Cyril Ramaphosa made a strong comment yesterday, I thought, outside Parliament. He was asked about the fact that Trump isn't coming, and he said, in his understanding of politics, and let's not mess around, it's a very deep understanding of politics, that in fact, boycotting something is basically doesn't achieve anything. And I thought that was a very interesting comment. To my mind, and this may just be me, but the Argentinian leader doing whatever Trump wants him to do because Trump bailed him out economically before a major election. So pretty much in Trump's pocket. He may not see it like that, but that's certainly how I see it. And I never really was convinced that the leader of China was going to come anyway. Hasn't done much traveling this year, I understand. Will send a very senior person instead. So yeah, just interesting to see how all of that pans out. But if you get a sense, moving around Sandton, moving around bits of Joburg, you do get a sense that the G20, it's not quite Philip is here, but it's not that far off, and we've still got some days to go.
702 with Stephen Grootes.
Email him on stephen@702.co.za.
Spending It is brought to you by the Glenlivet Live Original. True originals don't drink and drive, not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly. So I'm absolutely certain that as a listener to The Money Show, you'll have an interest in luxury and in value for money, and not that often you get to combine the two. Luxity is, I suppose, the first shop that I know of its kind where you can buy luxury goods, and I really do mean luxury, that have been pre-loved. Michael Zahariv is the co-founder of Luxity. Michael, good evening. How does your model actually work?
Great to be with you this evening, Stephen. And our model is pretty simple. As you can imagine, with any reseller, we buy and sell luxury goods. So when we're talking about luxury goods, we mean the highest of fashion items, from handbags, shoes, accessories, and clothing, as well as luxury jewelry and watches. And we buy 100% from South Africans, and we resell across the country using our online store and 4 retail outlets.
This luxury market is, to an extent, I mean, almost the definition of it, is that it's about exclusivity. You really want to be the only one at the party with that bag or those shoes. Does that still work when they're pre-owned? I mean, is that still a big part of the draw, part of the price even?
Well, 100%. Actually, I mean, your listeners might be surprised to learn, but if we're talking exclusivity, some of the most exclusive items in the world are only available in a pre-owned state. You know, even in South Africa, if we look at the market locally, Hermes, Chanel, those are not brands that you can buy locally. So one of the only ways to access these brands is pre-owned. Most Rolexes at Luxity are reselling at higher than they are new because there is such limited access. So I think the case of pre-owned actually adds to this idea of exclusivity, because some of the most exclusive items are really only accessible on the pre-owned market.
It must be interesting to see sort of what people price in for the future. And let me just explain what I mean. So I'm presuming that the Rolex watches you talk about, people are thinking it might be an investment, it will hold its value, it's a long-term store of value. But not everything on your site is like that. I was looking a few days ago, you had a Louis Vuitton backpack. And Michael, did I read it right? It's over 40,000 Rand for a backpack.
Yeah, that's 100% correct.
So, I mean, a backpack, I don't know if it would hold its value because you're actually going to use it. Whereas a Rolex, yes, you might wear it a couple of times a year, But isn't it a lot more likely to hold its value than a backpack, which, anything can happen? I mean, Stephen could spill his coffee over it.
Well, that's actually an interesting point you make, and I think it speaks to how the pre-owned luxury market specifically is priced. So, consumers and yourself are probably used to things being priced of, I'd purchase a vehicle, I paid 100,000 Rand or so for it, and, the future price of it is a depreciation on what I paid for it. Whereas luxury items trade quite differently. They trade based on the current new price. So if you purchased a new backpack today, let's say, and it was 40,000, and next year it's 50, and the following year it's 60, then the pre-owned market will be priced on that current year's price. So today, in fact, we did a study, and we saw that the oldest item we've sold at Luxity was a Louis Vuitton duffel bag, and that duffel bag was from 1986, and we sold it 2 years ago for 22,000. And in 1986, that price of that bag was around 500 Rand. So you can see the appreciation, and that speaks to this idea that over time, all of the items, if they're kept in range, will appreciate because the pre-owned price is based on the current retail, not on the retail that you paid many, many years ago.
Obviously, they need to be in good condition. So, yes, they'll have been used. I mean, I am presuming a duffel bag like that's probably been around the world a couple of times in planes, but it needs to be in really good shape.
100%. It is important to realize that if you're going to damage it or overuse it or not respect how you should be using the item, of course it's going to lose value. But the good thing is that generally luxury items, and specifically even more vintage luxury items, do stand the test of time, and that is why they hold their value. And people generally appreciate that. I think a lot of the appreciation that comes with pre-owned luxury, even vintage pieces, is this idea that it has a story to tell. It's not just something you're walking in buying over the shelf, but there's a history to it. And many items passed down through families or generations, they keep that storytelling to it. It's a very personal thing. Many people enjoy buying luxury, particularly when they go overseas, as a way to, remember that holiday, remember that special occasion. And, that plays into this idea of value, which is outside of, just what can I get for it, but it's about the memories and the purpose it serves outside of it.
And do you see the same goods coming back? Do you see the same watch, being bought, somebody buying it, it comes in, you sell it, then the person brings it back, you sell it again? I mean, do you sometimes come across bags and things again and again, the same ones, I mean?
Definitely. I mean, what's interesting is when we began 9 years ago, there was quite a rift in the market. We had individuals that solely sold to us, and then we had individuals that solely bought from us. And in a way, there was people aspiring, trying to own luxury, and people trying to offload luxury. But over time, it's really been combining to the state where over 60% of the items we buy today come from people who also sell to us, so buy from us. So there's definitely a mixture now. And in fact, at Luxity, we offer a 70% buyback guarantee. So if you buy something from us and you use it and it's still in a good condition when you sell it back, we're going to give you 70% of what you bought it from us at a guarantee. So I think that really helps this idea of the circular economy, which, it's not just about circulating the goods, but also circulating the money within the market.
Do you have seasons? Is Christmas a big time for you, or is it a kind of consistent business more?
It's generally quite consistent, and we find that the reason for that is because there's an over-demand. So our seasons more flow with the supply. So generally, actually, what we find is prior to June, July, many people like to offload because they're going to Europe for summer. They're going to be purchasing new items, and perhaps they don't have enough space. So then they'll offload quite a lot of items to us. And because there's so much demand for well-priced luxury items, the supply is what determines when you're going to have an uptick in sales.
Michael Zahari, thanks so much. Really do appreciate that. The co-founder of Luxity. You pour a glass of the Glenlivet and time slows. a hint of spice, fruit, and oak warmth. Now imagine that same spirit of craftsmanship with the elegance of the Mercedes-Benz AMG. When you buy Glenlivet 12 to 25-year-old, you could win a brand new Mercedes-Benz AMG. Visit theglenlivet.com or any participating store for a chance to win. Made to follow no one. The Glenlivet. Live original. True originals don't drink and drive. Not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Drink responsibly. T's and C's apply.
KwaZulu-Natal has it all, believe it. The Zulu Kingdom is home to unforgettable adventures and experiences that will stay with you forever. Why not invite Abundase and whale watch along our wild coast? Or turtle track in the heart of St. Lucia? Take a tour of our historic battlefields. Then rise above the beautiful Midlands meander in a hot air balloon trip made for two. Unforgettable happens here. Zwagala.
Take the ultimate spin with 10Bet and me, Andy Lengube, to win a luxury BMW X3. Join 10bet.co.za. Play selected games. Every 10 rands you play earns you points. Hit the top of the leaderboard and the prize could be yours. T's and C's apply. 10Bet is a licensed betting operator and supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 shall be permitted to bet. Betting can be addictive. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. License number 921096661.
Standard Bank and 702 have joined forces to bring you China Unlocked.
Africa generally provides a massive opportunity for all tourists. People, Europe is largely saturated in tourism. I see in the Middle East significant numbers of tourists increasingly coming to this part of the world. Think Saudi Arabia, I think the UAE, Dubai in particular, Abu Dhabi, and increasingly. And it's all about creating connectivity, safety, and a good value proposition for tourists. We have a relatively cheap destination, generally speaking. It's, of course, there's a long-haul destination, but people want those unique experiences. We have to package it, market it, and sell it effectively.
Don't miss China Unlocked on 702 Drive with John Perlman. Tuesdays on 702. Brought to you by Standard Bank Business and Commercial, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The Money Show. Small business focus.
The Small Business Focus is brought to you by Capitec. Start up or scale up with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Well, a big sort of global entrepreneurship moment. The Township Economy Summit, the Township Economy Awards, seen as part of the sort of side engagements of the G20 Startup 20. And you can imagine how much of a focus there is on South Africa and entrepreneurship at the moment. In the studio with us is the Township entrepreneur and business speaker, Bulalani Balabala, been very involved in all of this. Bulalani, good evening. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming in. The G20 Startup 20, I mean, it's all about global entrepreneurship. How do you see this linking up with what's happening inside our township economy at the moment?
I mean, I think as a task force member myself, and I think good evening to you, Stephen, and the listeners. I think as a task force member ourselves, I mean, we played a critical role in putting together policy. I think from an entrepreneurship perspective, so that at least it's considered from a G20 level, from a consideration perspective, whatever trade conversation will happen, at least there are some aspects of policy will then come into place. And I think the biggest thing that we would then hope for is that that policy will actually translate into action. And I think a little bit of the actions that we've tried to put in place is the initiatives and activities that we have happening on the ground, where we're pulling some of the task force members or individuals who are participating in the various streams to come in and plug in and actually, in essence, tap in, feel and experience what actually happens on the ground.
The Township Economy Summit and the Township Economy Awards, they're sort of next to each other this year. I mean, there must be huge synergies.
No, definitely. I mean, big ones. I mean, the Township Economy Summit is seventh. It's the 7th annual Township Economy Summit. I mean, started, I think, about 10 years ago, but obviously we had 2 years of nothing because of 3 years of inactivity because of COVID.
Yeah.
We brought it back last year, and I think to resounding cheers. But I think some of the key things really there is now unlocking the major sectors that operating in the township. And I think by unlocking means we're sharing practical information around these sectors. We're sharing route to market within these sectors. And I think some of those key sectors that we're looking at and tapping into is mobility and transportation, is manufacturing in the township, as well as retail in the township, your spaza shops and so on and so forth. And then we're also looking at technology as well as digital transformation, payments, marketing, as well as systems and processes for businesses.
I mean, you call these the sort of our unofficial Startup 20 side engagement. I mean, that's quite a lot of weight to give it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think for me, it's it's recognized by DECO as we've gotten that endorsement, as well as Startup 20. But I think for me, the work that we do, speaks to the mass amount of individuals. The mass workforce of the country resides in the township. Majority of the businesses that are listed at GSE, the reason why they're there is purely because of those consumers that buy their products, the essential products and services. And I think then this becomes an essential part of the conversation. And I know that as we look everywhere, there's been a lot of 20s thrown everywhere. Some are T, some are Z20s, some are B20s, and some are other letters, right? But I think for me, the most important letter is definitely the township letter, right? And I think being able to shine a spotlight on these entrepreneurs and getting them identified and seen becomes critical.
Don't call it the T20.
No, definitely not the T20. Because I was thinking about it, Jesse. I think the amount of times you probably said the number 20 this past couple of months, I can only imagine. Being on this platform.
About 40 years ago, I was 2020. Not anymore. Townships and micro businesses. So businesses there, they face particular pressures. You've had big sessions about this recently. There'll be big international conversations. What pressures are you seeing coming through?
I think there's a number of pressures, really. I think some of the real big ones is the direct effects of some of the large corporations that have been supporting some of these micro enterprises as well as formal businesses from an enterprise development perspective, from a supply development perspective, and some of those taps really just been squeezed just a little bit dry because I think they're feeling the pinch really at the top. But I think what we've advocated for is a level of cross-selling. And I know that for high growth, you sort of take on the bottom-up and the top-down approach, which says that large corporates must do business with small businesses and small businesses must do business with large corporates. But what we sometimes negate is cross-selling to then ensure that at least we cover our base, or cover our overhead, so that we ensure that that big deal that might tie you over maybe for the next 9 or 8 months, the moment it pulls through, at least you have covered up your bases instead of focusing on one stream.
Yeah. There must be some challenges that are kind of specific to South Africa and others that are very similar to what's happening in parts of India, for example.
I'll tell you, obviously the big one really is infrastructure.
Yeah.
Infrastructure becomes a real big problem, which is why I say, and may I not be misquoted in saying this, doing work in townships is an inconvenience. You have to be passionate. You have to be intentional. Because you're faced with a myriad of different things, whether it's a forum stopping your work, whether it's an infrastructure issue, whether it's a lack of connectivity, whether it's a safety issue. It takes intentionality. So I think sometimes that level of intention sometimes gets thrown out the window, especially when it comes to supporting individuals that are operating within these spaces, individuals that I'm very passionate about. I think some of the other challenges, depending on where you operate in, especially within the country, crime has become a very, very big pressure point as well. And I think, and I think over and above that as well, the third one that I'll mention above market access and the sort is the lack of clear information. Because in most cases, an entrepreneur will say that, in actual fact, no one's funding me and I'm really frustrated, but negating the fact that you might get business support services from SEEDFA, you might get 10,000 or 50,000 rand from the NYD and so on and so forth. But then information is not stored in a central place where is easily accessible for individuals to then find out where do they plug in and where do they access information. That's why you must come to the summit.
Sure. There's been quite a lot of conversations around township businesses recently, not just on the Money Show, but there's conversations around informal settlement, around informal businesses, the conversation around registrations. Is there still a big misunderstanding?
Definitely there's a big registration. I think the very essence of the registration drive is a deep misunderstanding. You're trying to get people to register into a system that they found ways have been forced to operate on the outskirts of, as opposed to allowing the system to be manageable enough to bring people along for the journey. So I think we need to rethink registration. We need to rethink formalization. In actual fact, township businesses are the most formal business you will come across. Everyone needs to formalize themselves on how they operate, and that way you'll be able to build an equilibrium that benefits everybody.
Bulelani, so good to see you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much,
And
Steve.
Bulelani Balabala, he watches the T20. He's a township entrepreneur and business speaker. 28 minutes after 7.
The Money Show.
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
And DSTV channel 856.
That's the sound of your business growing. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, turn your passion into profit with Capitec Business Banking. Save up to 50% on fees. Get fast credit approvals, personalized support, and Forex for your business. Open your business banking account on our app. Bank on better with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Capitec is an authorized FSP. 46669. T's and C's apply.
Coming up
The Aubrey Masango Show
on 702
and Cape Talk.
Live and in person, here he is. Aubrey, good evening. What's coming up tonight?
I know we're really late, so the very big issue for tonight is the second hour of the show. I'm going to be joined by Mqondisi Kumete. He's the CEO of the OMG, the event director and event co-host. He's also going to be the MC there. But this is a turf, a fusion of South Africa's golf and orchestral performance. And it's a big event that's going to be taking place at the Kalani Country Club. And we're going to be talking about that in the second hour of the show. A little bit of an ease on down from some of the heavy topics. But then in the third hour of the show, we go serious again when I speak to Professor John Stremlau, international relations expert, as we talk about, of course, the USSA relations with regards to whether or not we might be able to normalize those relationships. He's going to be talking to me about that in that third hour. But the first hour is Psychological Matters with Dr. Samke Ngobo, and we're talking about mental health education. And that's the show tonight.
Aubrey Masango, thanks very much indeed, bringing the time to 7:30. Zingisa Chiwa, good evening. What's the latest on the G20?
Well, Stephen, with 9 days to go before hosting the G20 Leaders Summit, Cabinet says it's all systems go. Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, says government remains unfazed by the United States' indications that it will boycott next weekend's final event in South Africa, despite taking over the presidency next year. Ntshavheni says the U.S. absence could facilitate consensus being reached among other nations to produce a declaration. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, says Cabinet is satisfied the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting was able to reach consensus. The fourth Sherpa meeting, which will be working on a declaration, and the social summit next week are the last G20 events before the Leaders Summit. With 130 meetings having been held in provinces across the country, South Africa is now ready to host world leaders, not only from G20 nations. Ntshavheni says the absence of the United States won't affect the program in any way.
It doesn't change that they take over. They take over because of the rotation, so it doesn't change anything. It doesn't diminish our work. We remember, South Africa will remain part of the troika of the outgoing chair, the chair, and the incoming chair.
The President is expected to visit the Nasrec Exhibition Centre tomorrow, where the Leaders Summit will be held. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
FlySafair says its employer-initiated work stoppage is due to continue for at least another week. The airline's Kirby Gordon says employees engaging in industrial action will remain locked out. This as wage negotiations remain deadlocked, with the union rejecting the company's offer of a 5.7% increase and a 7.5% annual bonus. Gordon says non-unionized employees have kept operations going.
On an individual basis, people can accept the company's offer and they sign a contract to that effect, and that basically withdraws their participation from the industrial action and they come back to work.
Alleged underworld gang boss Nafiz Morak has denied using two pingers to track the whereabouts of prominent attorney William Booth. Booth survived an attempt on his life at his home in April 2020. The incident forms part of the 122 charges Modak and 14 others face in a high-profile trial at the Western Cape High Court. Carlo Peterson was there.
State Prosecutor Greg Wolmerans continued his cross-examination of Nafis Modak today, focusing on the attempted murder of criminal defense attorney William Booth in April 2020. Modak and 4 co-accused face charges of attempted murder related to the incident. Wolmerans used evidence of ping lists to show co-accused Zain Killian and a former state witness Calvin Rafadi were tracking Booth in September 2019. During his testimony, Rafadi told the court Modak instructed him to ping Booth. However, today Modak denied giving the order.
You contacted Rafadi and you would have asked Rafadi at 17:39 to ping Booth. It's false.
Wolmerans will continue his cross-examination of Modak on Monday. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News, Western Cape High Court.
And firefighting efforts are continuing in the Montague, Ashton and Dedorens areas. The fire in Dedorens was caused by lightning high up in the Madruisburg Mountains. The Cape Winelands District Municipality's Joanne Otto says hot weather has not helped, but they are hopeful cooler temperatures at night will assist firefighting.
The fire that started last Friday in the Kochmanskloof Mountains above Zolani outside Ashton, however, continues to frustrate firefighting efforts. A small active spot remains on the high peaks above the Guano Caves near Montague.
Otto adds there's been no property damage at this stage.
On the opposite side of the mountain, above Sarah's Valley, the fire line has spread into rocky areas. The slightly cooler temperatures today have been assisting teams in their containment efforts.
And a cloudy Friday is in store for Gauteng with isolated afternoon showers and thundershowers expected. Lows of between 14 and 17 degrees and highs of between 25 and 27. Cape Town can expect clear skies at a low of 16 and a high of 26. The top story in EWN. With 9 days to go before hosting the G20 Leader Summit, Cabinet says it's all systems go.
At Chamberlain's, there's something for everyone. From building supplies for the home renovators to garden essentials for the homemakers. From power tools for the DIY doers to painting supplies for the patio Picassos. We even have coffee for the slightly sleepy and snacks for the young ones. And for the ones who can never quite find what they're looking for, we have you covered too. With our promise to find and source whatever you need. Chamberlain's, famous for hardware since 1903.
Betway is taking you to dizzying new heights in one of the world's most popular games, Aviator. Place your bets and watch the multiplier climb higher and higher. Pick the right time to cash out and stand to win millions on a single bet. It's all possible from the palm of your hand. Get way more only at Betway. Betway is licensed and regulated by the Western Cape Gambling and Racing Board. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. South African Responsible Gambling Program toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. Winners know when to stop.
Summer is about rewarding yourself with oceanic views, sizzling braais and so much more. Earn your share of 120 million rand in real cashback, depending on your rewards tier, when you pay with your Absa Visa card. Plus, enter the Absa Swiper competition and stand a chance to win one of 10 cars. This summer could be the best you've had in years. Your story matters. Absa, T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
23 minutes now to 8 the time. Time for Investment School this evening. South African insurers, insurance companies, what are their profits like? Are they worth investing in? In a way, it gets you actually a bit under the skin of South Africa itself because you are insuring for risk. And that's the conversation we're having in Investment School tonight. Vincent Anthony Raja is the CEO and co-founder at Differential Capital. Hlelo Giyose is the Chief Investment Officer and Principal at First Avenue Investment Management. Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed for coming in. I really do appreciate it. Hlelo, let me start with you. How seriously, why would you look at the insurance sector as an investor? What are you looking for a start? What do you get from them that maybe you don't get somewhere else?
Well, the insurance sector is a captive of South African savings, long-term savings, rather than short-term consumer savings. So the banks do short-term consumer savings, whereas insurance companies do long-term savings. Now, what does long-term savings mean? It means, for the most part, your life, and it also means So your life policy, funeral policy, but also a property casualty, which is your car, your home, built property, commercial buildings, fixed property, farms, and so on. Any country that is asset rich, meaning that has a formalized sector of ownership of assets and can lend against those, requires insurance against them or for them, right? If you go to a bank and you borrow money to buy a car, to buy a house, the bank will likely also insist that you insure that car for as long as you haven't paid off the debt yet, right? So it turns out the two go together. Hence, in the past, life insurance companies used to be partners or have part shareholding with banks. So I think it's ABSA used to be with Standard Bank, used to be with Sanlam, NetBank with Old Mutual. It was just capturing the same value chain of the same rand. Now, these are two different businesses, so it doesn't really make sense that they're together, but you can imagine that one leads, in some respects, one leads to the other. Today, you can still look at someone like ABSA, but even Standard Bank, all the banks, in fact, have insurance businesses inside of them for that very purpose.
Okay, so Vincent, I mean, there are obviously things that you get from this, and you can then need to start looking at where the profits in the insurance industry come from.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the insurers today, they're actually quite varied compared to the banks, which are maybe a bit more similar to each other. So on the one hand,
don't you dare say that to Discovery Bank?
Yeah, they're so different. But if we look at the insurers, and let's start with Discovery, probably almost a third of its profits actually come from medical aid administration, which makes it a bit different to the others. So already there's a component of its profits that come from a different source that's not that capital intensive, that's high return on equity. And then on the other side, you have, let's call it, insurance groups that are more short-term insurance focused, non-life. Some of them are really awesome businesses like Outsurance, as an example, which only make profits from really largely retail selling to insurance cover, household and car to people like me and you. And then on the other side, you've got the more traditional, the bigger insurers like your Sanlams, Old Mutuals, Momentums, that make a big part of their profits from life insurance, so mortality risk, as well as savings. So because they are savings pots for a large amount of the population, they make asset management profits. Basically taking fees off the savings that they collect on behalf of others. And then there's a unique aspect of insurance in that almost every insurer has what they call a float or shareholders' funds. And that's invested in the market, and they also earn interest on that. That's roughly where that makes up most of the profits of insurers.
So there are different ways that money comes into the insurance industry, right? So there's underwriting, there's premiums, obviously there's investment income. Some must be more important than others, and particularly at different times.
You are, as an insurance company, you are in the business of underwriting risk. It's one of your great core capabilities, your core competencies. You have no shot at float, for instance, or any other knock-on business if you can't underwrite risk really well. So therein lies a rub. The different techniques of underwriting risk. For the most part, most insurance companies have had a similar group-based, and I'm going to explain what group-based means, group-based method of underwriting risk. And then here comes Discovery saying, actually, we're going to underwrite risk on an individual basis. And we're going to put each person through a particular test. And we're going to call that test vitality. And you're going to work out, and you're going to, we're going to put thematics or telematics in your car, We're going to do things that individualize you so that we don't lump you up as 28-year-old male, black, urban, and then we charge you the same amount. we're going to charge you differently according to how you individually behave, how fast you drive, where you go to, so on and so forth. And that's part of underwriting risk, right? And the one way of thinking about it is that you get a universe of customers, right? And the trick is, how do you throw out, may I use a really bad phrase, how do you throw out the bad apples?
Yeah.
So you use negative selection, in that case. You start doing things that, say, Discovery is doing, and if someone keeps getting tripped up by some of these tests, the premiums just go up. So you can imagine if you keep crushing your car, the premiums just keep going up. If you smoke and you do all sorts of things, your life policy just keeps going up. That's negative selection. And you get to a point where the premiums are so high, even you can't get insurance from anybody, or no one wants to underwrite you anymore.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, there's a lot of money that comes in from there. Vincent, there must be times when the insurance industry has a rough time, and I can think of two recent examples. The one is the flooding in KZN. Yeah. And I think in some ways we're not actually done with that from an insurance perspective. Sure. And then the other is COVID. Yeah. I mean, if you looked at what happened with the life insurance industry, there were a lot of people, and of course Sastria, and I want to talk about Sastria in a moment for various reasons, had to be recapitalized.
Yeah. So fortunately with the life insurers during COVID, they increased their reserves because they did see elevated death claims. But then what the actuaries do is they start, extrapolating and making assumptions. And so what happened is they then increased their reserves. In other words, they held back on a lot of the profits and started, reserving for more losses. And as a result, they declared very, very low and negative profitability. And they all went through, let's call it a really torrid patch. And not to mention, certainly elevated amounts of claims payments due to, higher, vastly higher than normal deaths. So that was a really rough time for the South African life insurers. And to make matters worse, I think I remember reading in Swiss Re, one of the global reinsurers, they actually said South Africa was one of the worst places that they'd seen in terms of baseline mortality changes during COVID. So, so I think that was an incredibly tough time for the South African life insurers. But other than that, generally life insurance, it's hard to find, events where you have large scale amounts of deaths. It's usually one of the most stable forms of profit that you can get. I would say, let's call it in the 80s and even early 90s, there was the AIDS epidemic, and there was, but it's not, that's a gradual worsening in mortality, not huge shocks. And when mortality is gradually changing, you can price for it. It's these shocks that are difficult to cope with. And then if we look at, for example, the riots and those floods, those generally do hurt, the non-life insurers. But having said that, South African non-life insurers are really diverse in terms of the lines that they make business profits in. So it's not just car and household. You also have engineering, as Lelo mentioned, a lot of other business lines that need to be covered. And you'll find that some of these actually, the profitability actually offset some of the losses that you get. But having said that period of the riots and now, the floods, those are going to have impacts on the profitability of the short-term insurers.
Lelo, we had the CEO of Sastria in Mpumitsikwe, I think off the top of my head, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And we were talking a little bit about politics, and I suddenly realized that this person had a more intricate knowledge of all of the sort of risks associated with South Africa due to politics than almost anyone I could think of.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And one of the things about insurance is you have to really know where the risk lies. So that is Sastria's risk because they're the only ones who insure for political risk. But there's the technology now of geocoding for flooding in KwaZulu-Natal, for example. Those are parts of the business that have to be run really well.
Not only that, you have to have satellite information to tell you where the fires might be this season, the droughts might be this season, natural catastrophes as they call them. But I want to just say something. Perhaps we missed a little step here. That one has to be curious about why South Africa is so overinsured.
Yeah.
Right? Why is this a great business, actually?
crime.
Right? No. It's lack of a social support system. In countries where you have a social support system, insurance is not that prevalent. But in South Africa, if you do not provide for yourself, when I say provide for yourself, life policy for yourself, and the greatest concern that people have is, when I pass on, who's going to look after my children? Now, you think about it, it's a little bit backwards, because what you really need to worry about is your health. We're overinsured from a life policy standpoint. We're underinsured from a health policy standpoint, right? But health policy is way more expensive than life policy. Not only that, funeral policy. We are as a country, we have the highest funeral insurance policy in the world, right? Why is that so? Once again, we're self-providing, right? And we're self-providing at the most basic and survivalist level, right? If you could, you can take it up to security in your home. That's insurance, right? But the reason why we have such a high penetration of life insurance policy is exactly that, self-provision.
Sure. Such an interesting point. You're with Investment School on the Money Show tonight. Hlelo Giyose is the Chief Investment Officer and Principal at First Avenue Investment Management. Vincent Anthony Raja is the CEO and co-founder at Differential Capital. We're looking at South African insurers and the investment case for them. It's 11 minutes to 8.
Flight Centre's Big Red Sale is back, 21 October to 14 November. Save up to 50% on tours, 35% on cruises, and massive deals on Thailand, Mauritius, and the Maldives. Even local flights from 1,900 Rand return. Now that's a win. Plus, 2 kids stay and eat free on selected breaks. The world's waiting. The deals are calling. So, get to your nearest Flight Centre store today. T's and C's apply. Flight Centre, your centre for travel.
I think it's time for an adventure. We could visit the grandkids, check on a London apartment while we're there, or we could meet them in Dubai and look at properties along the way.
Why settle in one place when you can be a global citizen? If it's on your mind, it's on ours. Partner with a wealth banker who will connect your global banking, lending, and investments on a single platform. See money differently. Nedbank Private Wealth. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
A man driven to the edge. I don't know where you are. I don't know who you're with. When his beloved takeaway was taken away. I will look for you. I will find you. And I will eat you.
It's the summer of stars at Simply Asia. Stand a chance to win a Toyota Starlet when you spend 200 Rand or more on our famous flavors. Order now. Simply Asia, connecting the Thai way.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
9 minutes to 8. Investment School tonight. South African insurers, are they worth investing in? Vincent Anthony Raja is CEO, co-founder at Differential Capital. Hlelo Giyose, Chief Investment Officer at First Avenue Investment Management. Vincent, obviously different things happen in our economy. So, for example, the economy grows or doesn't. Inflation goes up and amazingly also comes down. We see interest rates going up and down as well. Do those affect the valuations of insurance companies? Do those have any impact on how much business they do, how much profit they make, and ultimately how much you should invest in them?
Sure. So what many investors like to look at is the insurer's own estimates of what their future profits are going to be. So that's called embedded value. There's other fancier terms now under this new IFRS rules, but the actuaries go out there and estimate what the future value of those profits are going to be. And when economic situations change, for example, when interest rates drop, you can find that the present value of those profits actually rise quite a lot, depending on the nature of the assets and liabilities. But yes, they are really, that value is quite sensitive to those assumptions. So let's call it the direct impact. There's a more indirect impact in terms of the behavior it has in terms of individuals. So we do find when short-term interest rates like prime rises a lot, there is an impact in certain types of policies where people stop buying them a lot. And that's, to Lelo's earlier point, a big driver of people buying insurance is when they're buying a house or something like that. So it's that part of the economic cycle that causes people to buy less or more insurance. So you find that when interest rates are dropping and people are starting to buy more houses, you start, not only needing to buy to cover the loan, but also generally people start thinking about, more cover, and they have perhaps a little bit more disposable income. The interesting thing, though, is I found that when economic times are tough, certain policies are really sticky because people find that they'll try and hang on as much as possible to that. Because when times are tough, and again, I said certain types of policies, especially these, life insurance, especially let's call it the underwritten life insurance, where the person's thought really long and hard about taking the policy, and they're really aware of it. What you find is even though times get really tough, those policies are quite sticky. Because think about it, when things get really tough on your personal financial circumstances, the one thing you don't want to do is, if anything happens to you, you get sick, or you die, then there's nothing for your family. So we find there's certain elements of robustness in the business model of a insurer.
Also then the investment case. So I would presume then that in a way, because of the way that they run, it's a fairly consistent business. You kind of know what you're going to get, at least. There's an element to an extent of predictability about it all?
There's an element of smoothness to it, right? But I have to tell you that the best part of life insurance, let's say life insurance for the most part, because it's probably the largest, most profitable pool in there, is that people shouldn't have it, actually, right? Rich people don't have life insurance policies. Rich people have credit insurance so that when they die, the insurance company pays off the house or pays off whatever they may owe. They have key man insurance so that when they die, the insurance company pays off their family, pays the company buys out the family's shareholding, and does what it does with the equity. So insurance is actually not being used well by the public. The public is using it literally as a stopgap measure. There's a fear factor involved such that no one actually buys insurance. It's sold to you, sold very hard to you. You have to have a big distribution network to sell fear to you. This is the reason why the wrong people are the largest customer base of insurance companies, and that's very profitable business.
It's a profitable business, but isn't it ripe for disruption then?
I think aspects of it are ripe for disruption. How you calculate risk, for instance, you can do it algorithmically now. AI can help you with that. But at the end of the day, there is no getting away from the fact that if you need to sell someone something they don't want to buy, there's no computer that can do that. It's another human being that can convince you that you need this, right? And this is the reason why life insurance companies will always have agents, sales agents who run around doing the bidding for them.
Vincent, if you look ahead, okay, so maybe there'll be a little bit of disruption, but it would seem still a pretty solid business to invest in over the longer term.
I think in the South African case, definitely, partly for the reasons Lelo has mentioned, but I also think in the South African case, the business models themselves are quite bloated. So historically, if you look at the cost model of an insurer, yes, they've got really expensive distribution systems, but they also have really expensive and bloated admin systems, especially some of the older ones. And I think where there's going to be major disruption is in those lines. So, is it possible to get, cheaper distribution? I do think so. If you look at Capitec's model, where they've sort of tacked on insurance into the sunk cost of the rest of the branch and the distribution that goes along with, selling loans. There's an example of an insurer that's actually, and when I say an insurer, there's a pretty big insurer inside Capitec. Last I checked, it's pretty much the same profit as Old Mutual now. So I think that's an area that's ripe for disruption. But it sort of speaks to the one constant that you've highlighted, Stephen, is the need for insurance in South Africa. I think that's always going to be there. I think how it gets distributed over time, that'll be interesting, because at the moment, and like Lelo mentioned, you've got funeral cover, which is predominant, but it is extremely expensive because there's actually very little underwriting that's done at it. And as, let's call it, consumers hopefully get more sophisticated over time and more financially literate, I think we could see the cost of the insurance drop, and perhaps, people getting better value for money, which will make it a more, probably a better product to sell as well.
Vincent Anthony Raja, thank you. CEO and co-founder of Differential Capital. Thank you very much indeed. Chief Investment Officer and Principal at First Avenue Investment Management on Investment School tonight.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards.
Well, the U.S. federal government is open for business, if I can call it that, but for the moment, still awaiting data. As a result, the Dow Jones is down 0.84%, the Nasdaq is down 1.64%, and the S&P 500 down 0.99%. It's been a busy week. We'll wrap it up for you tomorrow. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.